so far you've seen Boros play Golgari for our first round, and then we had Temur play Selesnya for our second round. So that's 4 guilds. There's only 5 in Guilds of Ravnica. There's still another match. That's 2 more decks. So Ross, what do you have?
Yeah, so I am playing the 5th guild.
Okay.
I'm the boring one in this match. I'm playing an Izzet deck. We saw Todd Anderson last week against Brad play an Izzet deck of his own styling that was more controlling, still very spell dense. I'm going to be a spell dense deck that goes a more aggressive route. I've got Weed Dragonauts. I have the new Phoenix 3/2 haste for 4, and just a bunch of cheap cantrips. We got 4 Crash Through, 4 Opt, some Discoveries, Chart a Course, and then a bunch of burn spells. So I'm going to try to set up in the early turns, play some really powerful creatures on turns 3 and 4, and then finish Todd off.
Okay.
So Arclight Phoenix, Ross.
Yes.
This is a new card from Guilds of Ravnica. It's a 3/2 haste flyer. If it's in the graveyard, if you play 3 instant or sorcery cards, it returns to the battlefield. Why are you playing this over some of the other options?
So the major option that I'm playing it over, and the other one I considered, is Crackling Drake, which I think is a very powerful card, but I wanted the immediate impact of the Phoenix. The haste damage, being able to recur it is a really good source of card advantage. And on a long game is going to be even better than Crackling Drake, just drawing a single card. And I think this deck can pretty easily play 3 spells in 1 turn.
So, I agree with that.
Yeah. So ultimately, when it's a deck that has as much burn as this one does, as opposed to something that's like more prowessy style, that's really heavy on cantrips, 16 or 20 cantrips in it, when I have this much burn, the immediate 3 damage is really important.
So I know you're playing Weed Dragonauts. Are you also playing Enigma Drake?
I am. I've got 4 of all 3 creatures that we've mentioned, and then a single copy of Adeliz, which is a 5th wizard.
Nice.
Weed Dragonauts is a wizard, so I can play a couple copies of Wizard's Lightning. The numbers there are going to be something to keep an eye on. Like, do I have enough wizards to play the Lightnings? Should I add more? Is Adeliz just powerful enough that I want to support it more with other cards? Right now, I like the fact that all my threats have flying. So adding some other like ground creatures is something I want to avoid, but maybe that's the route I want to go. So those are some of the things that I'm going to keep an eye on. And I'm also going to keep an eye on Todd's very spicy brew to round out our 6 decks from this afternoon.
That's right. So we're going to have 6 decks here. So we have 5 guilds. We have to have another deck. And I wanted to go a little bit bigger. You know, we're playing a bunch of aggro decks, a bunch of small stuff. I want to go a little bit bigger. And by a little bit, I mean much bigger.
Much bigger. Let's take a look at the deck.
So with the addition of Chromatic Lantern from Guilds of Ravnica, that reprint, plus Circuitous Route, which is the new explosive vegetation that can also find gates, and already having Gilded Lotus and Gift of Paradise in the format, I just wanted to just go really, really big. So a Braid is leaving, which is really nice when you're trying to play stuff like Gilded Lotus and Chromatic Lantern.
Yes.
So that's also another really nice thing. So I'm being very, I'm still being safe here where I'm just sticking to 3 colors. I'm going with Temur, with green obviously for our ramp, and blue and red for some of the bigger payoff spells. Even though with Chromatic Lantern and Gilded Lotus, I think it's very easy to go 5 colors. So it would be very easy, I think, if I wanted to play cards like Settle the Wreckage, Wrath's Contempt, stuff like that. But we're just going to be sticking to Temur here for today.
Quick note, there are 2 copies of Simic Guildgate in the land pile. We have fixed that since Simic Guildgate is not a currently standard legal card.
That's my bad.
That has been replaced by 2 forests. Maybe when the next set comes out, we'll be able to play some Simic Guildgates, but probably not.
So I just have a couple more forests there. Just want to have enough green sources for the Circuitous Route.
As well as Pelakka Worm, since it is heavy on the green.
Yep. So we have a lot of demands on our mana late game. So basically what we're trying to do here is we're trying to play a ramp spell on 3, and then another either 3 mana or 4 or 5 mana ramp on 4, and then turn 5 and beyond, play really big hitting stuff. We have Star of Extinction, which isn't going to be as good in this matchup because Ross has a bunch of cheap spells, but for the decks that play more expensive spells, that can be pretty backbreaking to destroy a land, and then of course Wrath the board.
My Selesnya deck does not want to see that card.
Right. Yeah. Or like the Temur deck, you know, like you don't want to be seeing that.
Blow up your board.
Yeah, that's not something you want. So that's what we got. All right.
Ethan Olo says, tradebinder.deck. You're not wrong.
Basically, we have like an Omniscience in here, like we saw from the old decks with the Omnidor Thragfire decks back whenever Gilded Lotus when Gilded
the
Lotus
worst deck name of all time.
Chromatic Lantern, when those were in standard the first time. And it's very possible to just cast Omniscience in this deck and then just start casting stuff like crazy. We have Overwhelming Insight to just refill the hand with 7 more cards to keep casting stuff for free. This could be fun.
There's a lot of nonsense going on in Todd's deck, and I'm going to try to stop all of it from happening.
Yeah, your silly aggro deck.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But,
Hinterland Harbor could be a replacement for the Simic Guild Gates if that is something you have access to.
That's true.
I also keep forgetting that those are all legal.
Yeah, I have a few. I think I have 3 Hinterland Harbors in here right now, so that could definitely one of those could be.
Right.
I wanted some more 2-color lands to be able to find a circuitous route, which is why I had them. But the only one that's actually available is the Izzet Guildgate right now.
Yeah,
in these color combinations, that is. Okay, so should we get to the match?
Let's do it.
All right, so
we're currently tied. So it's very important who wins this die roll.
all right, let's do high roll since we're going really big in this one.
Okay, we're going big.
Yeah, we're going big.
Let's do it with 3 dice, though.
3 dice?
Yeah, we're going big.
Why not 5 dice?
Yeah.
Okay, 5 dice.
One for each guild?
Yeah, 1 for each guild.
Okay. All right.
I got a pretty good roll here.
I have
got 20. Oh,
that's pretty good.
yeah, you got 24, my
'cause
21.
those all tie, and then I got 4-3.
Yeah.
Your 3's 1, so I got you by 3.
Man,
All
I
right.
thought 21 was good. 17.5 is average.
No, this is a wrong game, Ross. 21's not good here.
Yeah.
Wrong game. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So we got a 3 mana ramp spell and another ramp spell. So this is exactly what we
ramp
want.
spells. Well, I have early card fixing and a threat to play on turn 3 and spells to follow it up. So
Perfect. All right.
Also
Is it Guildgate?
see, Todd draws his gate on his opening hand and plays it turn 1.
That's what
I
you're
draw
supposed
it
to
on
do,
turn
right?
4 when I need to play a 4-drop.
You had that Guildgate in your hand for a while. Don't you lie.
Yeah, but I needed to play a 3-drop too.
I know. Don't you lie.
Oh, you have an
I did
18?
also play a 1-drop.
Are you sure you want to shock?
Yeah.
That may come back to
And
bite
then
you.
I want to give all my creatures trample so that they attack better.
Okay. Do they just always have
All
trample?
powerful crash
Yeah.
through. Is that the one I'm seeing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just drawing an extra card.
Ooh, I like that card. Go ahead. So now
Okay.
we got some ramp here. We're gonna hopefully draw some big things.
Well, I need to find another land, so let's cast this chart, of course.
Okay, resolves.
Yeah, it seems like 3 is really where your deck gets going, right, Ross?
Yeah, 3. You definitely need to hit land 3. Even though this is a little bit more powerful of a burn spell, I have enough 2s in my hand that I want to discard this lightning strike, so I'll pass.
Okay, good. All right, so 3. So we're leading off with Gift of Paradise here over Chromatic Lantern because Chromatic Lantern can add another mana later on. I guess Gift can also, but
Yes.
and I also want Gift on a basic land because I don't want like a Field of Ruin to be able to blow it up. So going to gain 3 life with that. Go up to 23.
Yep. Okay, I have a Wee Dragonauts. Let's get this party started.
A Wee Dragonauts.
Let's see if it survives.
What is it? So like you cast instant or sorcery, it gets +2/+0.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we got 5 mana, so we can Guild of Lotus. Guild of Lotus can go 3 for a Chromatic Lantern.
Yikes.
It's a lot of mana.
That's so much
Go.
mana. Let's just see what the follow-up is. I'm sweating it.
So
We could
Todd has 9 mana next turn, 10 with a land drop.
Yeah, so next turn, land drop Omniscience.
Missions, yeah. Just turn 5. Cast like 2 Palaka Worms. I don't know.
Turn 5 Omniscience plus.
Plus Overwhelming Splendor. Just refill your hand, play a bunch of Palaka Worms.
Okay. Well, I still want my Wee Dragonauts to have trample just in case Todd blocks.
Okay.
So
It has
let's cast
trample.
that. We'll use a
Yes,
die to keep
that
track
is
of how
why
many
you're
triggers
playing
we
that
have.
card.
Draw a card. Now I'm going to cast Mission Briefing.
Yeah.
So I get to surveil 2 and then choose an instant or sorcery in my graveyard and
Snap.
cast it.
Cast it.
I don't need any more lands, but I do kind of like having another threat. So let's bin this land and keep this here, and then I'll choose a Crash Through. That's a second spell, and then the Crash Through will be a third spell.
Yep, so I'll take
Um,
6, 7.
Yep.
So,
And then-
Ross, how do you think Mission Briefing is going to affect Standard? Do you think it's going to be as good as Snapcaster Mage was? Or do you think the 2-1 body is the more relevant aspect versus the Surveil 2?
The 2-1 body is certainly more relevant. It's not going to come remotely close to what Snapcaster did. I'm not very high on this card. It's particularly good in my deck because I just want to cast a ton of spells in one turn, and it's 2 spells,
Right.
and I'm still only playing a single copy.
Sure.
So that should tell you that I hold it in very low esteem. I'm playing 1 just to test it out. It was pretty good there, but nothing that like blows you away.
So we can either play a removal spell or a big creature. Kind kind of want to play the removal spell, but no, let's get our creature down on the battlefield.
Casting a Nezahal.
Yep, casting Nezahal.
That seems pretty good against my deck that casts lots of non-creature spells.
That's
Yeah.
Huh.
So, as you can also see, I have 2 Arch of Orozcos in this deck because we can produce so much mana, so that's another way we can continue to refill our hand.
You're 1 permanent short of the City's Blessing, though.
Yep. 1 short right now. All right, go ahead.
So Ross, how many cards are you going to let him draw this turn?
A lot. I'm going to let him draw a lot.
This is a quick question
actually only
for
one.
Todd. So you have the Gilded Lotus untapped. Do you have cheap removal here that could kill the Wee Dragonauts if you are able to draw a bunch of cards here?
In my sideboard, yes. Not my main deck.
Okay. So I'm going to play an Adelies.
Okay.
And I'm going to attack you with my creatures.
That is acceptable.
Okay. Before damage, I'm going to Lightning Strike you, triggering Dragonauts and Adelies.
Trigger.
Yep.
Okay, it resolves.
So you go to 13. And now my Dragonauts is a wizard, so it gets pumped by the Adelies as well. So this is a 4 and this is a 3.
Yeah.
So that brings you to 6.
Yep.
And then I'll pass the turn.
Ooh, boy. All right, I will attack for 7.
Brings you to 11.
Well, let's see.
Yeah, I need to discard 3 and then star.
Yeah, I think. Okay, so how are we doing on mana? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, you have 10 right now.
So I'm just gonna let Nezahal die. So I'll just destroy a Steam Vents.
I do like the interaction with Nezahal and Star of Extinction. Being able to blink it out and then blow up the world is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us why?
5, 6, 7.
Why you did not choose to save your Nezahal? You
yeah.
can save it. You can save it.
Yeah, I think that this card's going to be pretty important for next turn, and I kind of want this one too. So we'll see if this gets us there. But
Ross, are you scared that he did not save his Nezahal?
A little bit. A little bit.
You should be.
think
I'm going to cast a Risk Factor.
a Ric Flair.
A Ric Flair.
You're casting a Ric Flair. Woo!
Now, what do you think of this new Browbeat
So I'm either
card?
going to take 4, which I'm not, or you draw 3. Sure, you can have cards.
Okay, I draw 3 cards.
I'm not taking 4. I'm at 6. You can have some cards.
Okay, I'll pass the turn.
So you're at 11. Boom. Boom. 11 you. So that's 1, 6, 9, 10, 11. You got a counterspell? No? Oh wait, can't be countered?
What's that?
Oh, can't be
Banefire
countered? Banefire you? Is that good?
Hold on. I'll opt in response.
Okay.
What's the top card got to be here for you to not be dead?
Oh, he's at 6. It can't be Thunderous Wrath.
Banefire you?
Man, I had so much burn in my hand. Just 1 turn away. Why did I have to shock myself on turn 1?
I told you it was going to matter. My deck is sweet.
I thought I was going to get Palaka Wormed, and instead I lost the game.
Yeah, no, so Palaka Worm would have been pretty good there too.
Yeah, which is actually was my card that I drew for turn was actually Palaka Worm. So,
Nice.
but I actually had that too.
No, Banefire 11, that's a pretty sweet way to close it out,
Yeah.
I gotta say.
That felt pretty good. All right, so let's go ahead and go to sideboard, and we'll be back here.
Is it hot in here?
Yeah. Are you
So
you're
many
on fire
burn.
right now?
And we're back here sideboarding in our last match of Izzet versus Temur Ramp.
Yep.
I am bringing in some counter spells because countering Todd's gigantic things seems very important. Eyes is a nice addition here. Normally, you would see a lot more negates here, but it's going to be helpful here that Eyes can counter Palaka Worm, and the extra damage I get is obviously helpful. I'm cutting my worst burn spell in shock. I'm bringing in my own Banefire. I don't generate quite as much mana as Todd does. Close.
Yeah,
it's close. But I'm a little bit behind. So I'll have to settle for Banefire for maybe 4. But
It better be 5, right? Or it needs to be at least 5 to be uncounterable.
in the games that go a little bit long, because Palaka Worm and Gift of Paradise give Todd a lot of additional life gain, I think the more powerful burn spell will help. But I'm not bringing in the other 2 long game cards I have, the Vance's Blasting Cannons and the Rao, because I can't go too long in this matchup. Otherwise, I get turned into a steaming crater, and I don't want that to happen. So I can't bring in too many late game cards. I'm just bringing in the one that is most relevant when I'm on 4 and 5 mana. and I want to end the game by turn 6 or 7. And so we'll just bring in those, and then a couple other counter spells. The negate will target Todd's ramp, hopefully, and the ionize will target block a worm, and the game will end.
Yeah. So on my side, I have Shivan Fires because I usually deal with a lot of early creatures in the format. Unfortunately, with Ross's specific deck, his creatures have more than 2 toughness, a lot of them, and so
Arclight Phoenix has 2 toughness, so
yeah,
you're good there.
that one's fine. Yeah, but so like that's like really annoying for me. So this may be like a 5 mana removal spell most of the time, but hopefully we can play our ramp on 3 and then be able to still have it on 5. I'm basically kind of replacing River's Rebuke with that because Ross's spells are so cheap. Rebuke is going to be a lot better in other matchups like this Lesnia matchup that we saw. I'm going to bring in Niv Mizzet as like a little bit cheaper threat, just a tiny bit cheaper. That's also just a flyer that can block. Basically, that's what I want. It can't be countered, and it can just block. And then whenever whenever either Ross or I are playing Insider Sorceries, I get to draw cards, and I'll have just a single negate in here. Treasure maps may be kind of slow, even though they're like my only thing to do on turn 2. I still think they may be a little slow. Same with Immortal Sun. So we're going to change our deck up just a tiny bit.
Now you got other things to do on turn 2, so you're good.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, a few people have been asking in the chat, Todd, what are your thoughts of playing Nexus of Fate in your deck?
So Nexus of Fate would be pretty good with this if I had more ways to draw cards and find more Nexus of Fates and everything. Whenever you just ramp into a Nexus of Fate, but you don't have planeswalkers on the battlefield that gain advantage or creatures that are attacking or anything, it's just really just kind of like an Explore where you play another land and then draw another card. And so you have to have things on the battlefield that are gaining advantage for Nexus of Fate, and I don't really have that.
All right, good point. As far as your deck is concerned, Ross, do you think that having mostly 3 drops as your threats is detrimental in this specific matchup and overall?
This is definitely a matchup where I would like to have cheap threats, like the more, like sort of like the Mono Red Wizards deck that we saw last season, and back those up and be more Adelies focused. And maybe that's the direction you want to take it. But I think in a lot of matchups, especially something like the Selesny deck I played last round, the flyers and the more powerful threats are really good. So it's a question of what other people are doing, I think. But in this matchup, it's definitely detrimental. As to whether it is overall, we'll see how the format shakes out.
Sure. Thoughts on We Dragonaut so far?
It looked pretty good there that first game. I was very scared.
I think I had enough gas there to beat a Palaka Worm. I just couldn't beat a Banefire. So I felt pretty good actually about that game. And if I didn't shock myself, I would have beaten the Banefire. Yeah. Maybe not, though.
Magic Meow asks, does Izzet deck play the 4-drop Enigma Drake? That is Crackling Drake. And we discussed this already. Ross is choosing to play Arclight Phoenix instead, since his deck is more damage output based with things like Shock, Lightning Strike. However, I do think both those cards are good and are definitely fighting for that spot.
Yeah, I agree. This hand looks pretty good. I've got enough lands, some threats, and some spells.
All right, same. I got my ramp spells. So
also, I'm prepared for Banefire now too.
Oh, okay.
So I've got Chandra protecting me.
Okay.
Can't target me with Banefire. I don't draw a card, though. You can go.
Chandra just lets you draw extra cards too? Wow.
Yeah, that's what every Chandra does that.
Yeah.
So I get to draw extra cards every turn.
All right, go ahead.
You should get yourself your own Chandra.
I know.
An Eternal Opt.
Okay.
I think I would rather find more cantrips at this point, so I'm going to bottom that one. Draw.
Okay.
I would really like to have a strong 2-mana threat here. You see my hand's a little glutted right now, so I just passed the turn on 2.
So you have a card in your sideboard that costs 2 mana that generates an advantage whenever you play instant and sorceries. Tell us about that one.
So that is the 2-mana wall here. Electrostatic Field. I think it's a great option for a deck like this against aggressive decks, as the 2-mana 0/4 body is going to stop a lot of their early aggression, and you're still getting a lot of value, a lot of damage with it. So then you could aim your burn spells at their creatures, still get some damage in, and then your flyers will finish them off.
Very similar to Thermo Alchemist.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to be getting our... we're going to be starting the same way. So we're going to be gaining 3, going to 23.
Man, the 3 life you gained was also relevant.
Yeah.
I had you at a virtual 1.
Go ahead.
Okay, that's interesting. So I am going to just attack you for 1.
Okay, I'm down to 22.
Play another We Dragonauts. Pass the turn. So we're going to set up and start going for bigger chunks next turn.
All right, so we're at 5 mana right now. Unfortunately, we can't double spell with our ramp spells. We can't do 2 ramp spells, and so I think we need to get more mana. So we're going to go circuitous route, even though we could have this option, but circuitous route makes sure that we can play one of our bigger things next turn. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Leave up our steam vents.
Yep.
So this is a newer card deck, very similar to Explosive Vegetation. It only gets gate cards, right?
It gets gates or basic lands.
Okay.
So it's just like
strictly better.
yeah, because Explosive Vegetation only got basic lands, and this can get basic lands or gates.
For those of you who haven't been playing Magic for a full decade or more, Explosive Vegetation was a very good card when it was in Standard for quite a while.
Yep. And I'm getting both my gates because I don't want to draw tap lands. So just getting the tap lands out of my deck. I'm good on mana sources for anything. I have 3 green here with the Gift of Paradise and that for Pelakka Worm.
Okay. I'm going to cast a Discovery. Trigger both my Dragonauts. So I surveil 2. Don't need more lands.
All right, while Ross is dirtling and Todd is shuffling, what are some of the other really expensive cards, Todd, that you thought about trying to ramp into for this deck, since you built this deck pretty recently after the set was completely previewed?
Yeah, I wanted I really wanted to fit Sunbird's Invocation in here, where we could have that on 6, and then once you start playing like a Pelakka Worm, you can look at the top 7 and maybe get another Pelakka Worm.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought Sunbird's Invocation would be really nice in here, and yeah,
you take 6. You're at 16.
Yep.
You can go.
So I thought that would be a really nice option, but didn't end up being able to fit it in. All right, so mana-wise now we're at 8. So I think I have to be wary of a counterspell from Ross.
I feel like you have a card in hand that says can't be countered, if I'm not mistaken.
That's true. Let's see. Let's go ahead and go with Chromatic Lantern.
Sure.
And then so now we're at wait.
Do you have 8 and you're playing Lantern, you're going to
yeah,
6.
That's going back to 6.
Yeah.
No, so I can't do that. I guess I could go these 2. Actually, I don't hate that.
8 minus 3 plus 1, Todd.
Yeah, actually I'm gonna just go ahead and do that. Play this and play Circuitous Route. It's gonna get more and more mana.
So this is going to get you to 10 next turn. Maybe 11. Yeah, that's fine.
All right, that's turn.
C Theriot from Twitch chat asks, how many Banefires are in your deck?
I only have 1.
Classic.
So yeah, it's not many. That's definitely a card that I could be playing more of, especially because you can just use it as an earlier removal spell as well.
Right.
But it was hard to fit in all these big cards because there's a lot that I really like. I really like Nezahal quite a bit, as you can tell.
Have Director Kyle's Blessing.
Okay, I got Director Kyle's Blessing now, with the Arch, and so I like a lot of these cards quite a bit. It's hard to fit more in. A lot of the cards I was playing one of, I wanted 2, but
I'm going to play a Chart of Course, trigger both my Wee Dragonauts.
It's a little bit of awkwardness there. Chart of Course plus Wee Dragonauts. Tell us about that a little bit, Ross.
Yeah, it is a little awkward because Chart of Course you kind of want to play after combat and get to draw the 2 cards, but you
so I think
with Wee Dragonauts you want to play them before combat.
So
it would be better if it was an instant. You could attack and then before damage cast, and they've already attacked, but unfortunately that's not the case.
Actually, maybe I just don't. Actually, I'm not going to negate. Now go ahead.
Okay.
I'm really scared of dying here, which is why I wanted to negate, but I don't think I can win if I use the negate here, actually. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I just kind of snapped that off, but actually thinking.
Discard Enigma Drake.
I think I have to hope that I survive this without, and then...
I mean, worst comes to worst if he goes for the, like,
yeah, if he goes for like a lethal lightning strike,
yeah,
then I can negate that, but I think I have to let that resolve.
I think I agree with that play for sure.
Yeah. Just kind of instinctual, but I gotta wait.
I will attack you for 6.
I am at 10.
Pass turn.
Real quick, mentioned Fresher from Twitch asks, are these really the decks you would play, or just some funny brews?
Well, I mean, to find out, we don't know yet. It's, the set isn't even like released or anything yet. So to find what decks we would play, we kind of need to play. We kind of need to stretch the limits, and play weird things and just see like what interactions are good and which ones we like, which ones we don't, and just start narrowing stuff down. But yeah, this is a good place to start, of just kind of pushing the limits and seeing is a ramp deck viable.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes especially when you're so guild focused with Ravnica and all these mechanics that are new, like you want to see just how good the mechanic is. That's a big one.
It's a big one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
What are you targeting?
I will target your untapped mountain. That's the one Chandra.
Ionize that Star of Extinction.
All right, and then negate. Your ionize.
What land is that Gift of Paradise supposed to be on?
Oh, yeah, that should probably be on land. So we'll tap that there.
Sure.
There we go.
Okay.
Pow. Star of Extinction's a card
Boom.
that I thought about playing in my Primal Amulet deck last week. I think it's very good, and it's making a strong case here.
Yeah, when you can ramp into it, it's just...
You have 2 in hand?
It's a good way, yeah. It's a good way for my deck to deal with Planeswalkers as well, because it gets rid of all the Planeswalkers.
Mm-hmm.
I will play an Enigma Drake and pass the turn.
How big is that, Ross?
How
big is it?
Not that big. I only have 4 instances of sorceries in my graveyard, so it's a 4/4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 5. So I can play one spell. One spell.
It's like the exact opposite. I have 5 mana. I can play like 4 spells.
I think I'm going to play this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Obviously, Izzet very restrictive on the casting cost, but Chromatic Lantern allowing you to tap any of your lands for any color, right?
Yep. So I can all my lands tap for any color. So that's just 6. Unfortunately, we're 1 away from this Archivaraska, right? Or no, we're 1 away from activating Archivaraska. There we go. Your turn.
So this is...
Whenever I draw a spell, I can deals 1 damage to a target, and then whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery, I draw a card.
He just has all these
Whenever
Punisher
a
cards.
player?
Yeah, whenever a
he just
player
has all
casts
these
an instant
Punisher
or
cards
sorcery.
for you. Nezahal, Nimbuzet.
I get-
Just none of your cards do anything.
You want to cast instant or sorceries? Well, I want to draw cards, Ross. Whereas I should have Jace because I'm drawing cards. You get Chandra, I get Jace. Where's Jace? Come on here, little buddy. Little buddy, see it, Jace. Yeah.
No, y'all should put them face up so the camera can see them.
Yeah, that's what I was in.
Neat little
There we go.
Funko Pops.
They're so adorable.
So right now you have 11 mana. You do 11 next turn plus 5, 16, 17,
Quick maths.
18. Yeah, that would be exactly 18. Oof.
What's going through your head here, Ross?
It's whether I want to leave my options. If I play the Steam Vents untapped, I get to leave all my options open. And but the 2 damage could be relevant. I'm going to play 1 spell this turn for sure. And if Todd, I guess Todd would. No, because this thing's likely going to die. Todd would have to have another counterspell in his hand, and he only brought in 1 negate. So I don't think there's any risk of me dying next turn with a 1 Banefire. So I'll go to 18.
Okay.
I will cast Adelies.
Okay.
I will attack you with both of my creatures.
And Enigma Drake is how
It is
how
a 4.
far?
It is a 4/4.
It's a 4/4.
Yes.
All right, so one spell makes it a 5/4.
Yes.
I think I still need to block Enigma Drake. So basically, I get a trade with his best threat, and I get a draw card. I think that's just what I have to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think just taking the damage, you're very likely to die.
It is possible that this card that I draw, though.
I'll cast a risk factor.
Woo,
before damage.
baby! I feel like we draw 3.
Trigger.
Yep.
It is possible that I draw the Shivan Fire, and I get to just bolt one of these, and that'd be nice.
If you let him draw 3 cards, you also get to shoot down his Adelies.
Oh, that's true.
That's nice.
So I draw a card.
It's whenever you draw a card.
Yeah. But I draw a card.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
It's not whenever. Yeah. My bad.
Yeah. So
It doesn't get to do everything, Todd.
Dude, Nimbuzet's looking nice. It's looking way nicer, or not as nice as I thought, but still nice.
Yeah, and I'll just do 1 damage to you, put you down to 17.
Yep.
And then you can either draw 3 or deal 4 to me.
Yep.
So that's going to be 7 total. So I'll be at 3.
Yep.
But then you only have 1 card in hand.
That's
Remember,
true.
he can jumpstart too, but it will cost him 3 mana next turn.
Yeah.
I
Broadbeat effects are
think
usually.
I want to take the damage.
So brings you to
Dangerous.
6, and then you go to 3 in these trade.
Yeah.
I'll pass the turn.
So, Ross, Browbeat is a card that traditionally a lot of players love. How do you think risk factor compares to that, and how do you think it's positioned in the standard format?
This is another card that I'm highly skeptical of. Again, only playing a single copy. You're gaining 7 life, go to 10.
Yep.
So I just wanted to test it out. It's been okay. It's been a little awkward just costing 3 mana. I'm a deck that really wants cheap spells.
Right.
So I'm still not sold on it, but being an instant, I think, helps a lot.
So basically need to find some way to deal with this Adeliz, probably.
And now I have the ability to cast it from the graveyard, which is cool. So I discard any card to jumpstart it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're at 10.
Yep.
And
I'd really like an Omniscience. Omniscience would be nice.
I would really like to cast every spell for free.
Yeah, Arch of Vraska is amazing when you have Omniscience because you don't need your mana anymore. You get to just start draw extra cards.
okay, I will risk factor. Do I want to do this first?
No, you don't.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm going to discard the discovery.
Okay.
'Cause I'm pretty sure Todd's going to let me draw 3 cards here.
Yeah, you can go ahead and draw your 3.
Okay, well, that at least points to what I want to do here. So I'm going to play a mountain and play Arclight Phoenix
Yikes.
and attack you for 6.
I'm down to 4.
Okay, do you have the 1 Banefire?
Nope.
You can go.
Come on, Banefire!
Wait,
Come
sorry,
on!
I have protection from it, so
Okay.
Oh,
can't
yeah,
Banefire
'cause
me.
The
That's
Chandra Funko
fair.
Pop.
I
Is it
got a 10.
Funko or Funko Pop?
Funko, I think.
I always thought
Drew
it was
a
Funko
worm.
Pop. I don't know why.
Up to 11.
Ooh, nice. Still in the game.
Still in the game. 7's a lot of life. Go ahead. Always been one off of this Arch of Vraska. It's been very annoying.
I think that was a good one. Attack you, lightning strike you, wizards lightning you.
Yep. Yeah,
So
man.
this will be a 4. Yeah, 13. Whew.
Oh, that looked nice. So, even though Arclight Phoenix didn't get recurred that game, the just basically dealing 6. The Crackling Drake would have done arguably more damage.
I think it would have done more damage, and it would have drawn a card.
Yeah.
So that's, even though I liked drawing the Drake there, or the Sphinx there, the Drake was still better. That's something to note. I do think this is a matchup where the Drake is probably better, but the Phoenix I like a lot in removal heavy matchups. That's
Agreed.
where it's going to shine.
Do you think the fact that your opponent can just exile it with something like Vraska's Contempt means that maybe you're not going to get as much value out of recurring it from the graveyard?
That is possible. I've been somewhat down on black as a color, so I'm thinking we're not going to see as much of Vraska's Contempt. There's also less pressure to exile with Hazoret and Scarab God out. So and there's of course no Magma Spray. So I do think Phoenix is going to die more than it would have last season. But then there's things like Conclave Tribunal. So
Okay, so with myself having Niv Mizzet in the deck as well, I'm going to trim one of the Nezza Halls because Ross is just so fast. I'm going to trim one of those for another negate.
yeah, I like that a lot. I think Nezal is pretty weak in this matchup.
Yeah, it was just stuck in my hand like the whole time. Never play it.
So considering, Todd, that you have like Arch of Vraska for mana sinks, and you have a lot of expensive spells, are there any like maybe 4 or 5 mana spells you think could bridge the gap in your deck?
Yeah, that would be like, especially if we want to go to like some more colors when we have the Gilded Lotuses and the Chromatic Lanterns and the Gift of Paradises. I think something that would be pretty good here to bridge the gap, like Settle the Wreckage, would be a really nice option. Or also Vraska's Contempt. I think those are like some really good removal spells at like the 4 mana range that could bridge the gap pretty well.
Yeah, it seems like you're hitting big mana pretty easily. What do you think about maybe even adding a second Omniscience? Or do you think that's too greedy?
That may be too greedy because you'll lose some games when you have it in your hand. But yeah, we have been hitting big mana pretty quickly here against an aggressive deck. It has been seeming like 10 mana is not that
Even
difficult.
doing so, Omniscience can be a liability by just not being a threat that impacts the board. If you don't have something to follow it up with, what good is it doing?
That's true.
Quick question from Twitch chat. What is Grow from the Ashes consideration for your deck? And is it already in your deck?
It's not in the deck. I don't think it's better than the other ramp spells that I have in here. I think we have enough ramp spells in
Is that
here.
the one with kicker?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, it
it
has
can
kicker.
get 2 lands, but they come in untapped, so you could play it on turn 5 or with 5 mana and still be able to play a 2 mana spell.
Yeah, I do like that card as a as a card that gives you flexibility in your curve, but the ramp spells in Todd's deck do very specific things, like Gift of Paradise to life.
Gaining 3 life
important.
is huge against aggro.
It won game 1.
Yeah.
Well, so for game 3 here, we're going to be keeping our hand, but we need a third land for sure. I'm playing 27 lands.
It's all down to this, Todd. Do you really want to stake your entire guild war?
Yeah. I need 27. Or I have 27 lands, so there's 25 other lands in here. So
Ooh, that's awkward.
Ross, you said Guild War. I say traitor because he's playing Temur.
All right. Are you going to stake your whole guild war on that hand?
Yeah, the sand is fine. It's a little awkward in the early turns. If I happen to draw a mountain or a steam vents, then the sand is excellent.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, and I just want to draw lands. If I just keep drawing lands for a while, I'll be good.
Yes.
I got everything else.
Yeah, it looks like Ross has
That's a land.
2 Sulfur Falls.
Okay, well, we return late on the mountain, but that's fine. That's fine.
Perfect.
I can just cast this here, Discovery.
Yep.
And Surveil 2, and honestly, I kind of want to supercharge this Enigma Drake in my hand, so I'm just going to bin them. And do I want this 4th land?
Yeah, I was going to say, you might actually want that land.
Yeah, I actually do think I want the land, so I'll bin the spell.
Okay.
I'll do the opposite.
Oh, come on. We need some lands. All right, we'll just put this gift on this guild gate here.
You go to 23.
Your turn. We hit lands, we're good.
That's the woes of the ramp deck.
Yep.
Sometimes you actually just miss your land drops.
We got everything we could want. I'll take not drawing a spell for the rest of the game. That'd be fine with me.
Enigma Drake.
Yeah.
I have the option of either 3-drop. I think the Drake is better in this instance because I have this follow-up.
Go.
Uh-oh. Giving me some time now.
Yep.
Giving me some time. I've got a Phoenix and I'm 5-point attack. You're at 18.
Yep.
Pass the turn.
Okay.
Now, you found a land. That's key to hit land here for a 5. Wait, you have 6. Oh,
yeah.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So Niv Mizzet's going to be a really nice blocker here.
Yeah, I gotta say the Lantern is looking real nice here, and
Yeah.
you know, as restrictive of the cost of Niv Mizzet Perun is, the fact that you can just cast off at any of your lands thanks to the Lantern is great, and it makes things like Arch of Vraska even better.
It's very possible I want more of this instead of the dinosaur. This card's just looked like better. Of course, like with this matchup with the flying being so important.
Instead of Nezahal.
Play Wee Dragonauts, attack with both.
Okay. So, all right, so we have a lightning strike coming in, then which one do we want to block? I guess, so this is right now 2 power. This would be 3 power also. They're both 3 power. Yeah, I'll go ahead and block
the one that doesn't come back. Definitely going to Wizard's Lightning this Niv Mizzet.
Trigger, draw.
Yep.
And trigger, deal 1 damage to you.
I'm at 19. These trade, you go to 15.
Yep.
Okay, pass. Hope you don't starve extinction me.
The Niv Mizzet doesn't stay in play very long. It's still drawing a card and eating your best friend.
Boom.
Okay, 22.
22. Go ahead.
Laka laka.
Yeah, so it ate Ross's best creature, dealt with the burn spell, and drew me the land that I needed for the worm.
I'm going to start this turn with a crash through.
Okay.
Sure, put a marker on that Dragonauts. So keep up with it. It's one of those things that you just forget sometimes.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and do that. So really hoping, like, I feel good about this game, but if Ross can just play a ton of cantrips.
Play a chart, of course.
Yeah, if Ross plays a ton of cantrips, it could die. Wee Dragonauts.
Discard a Wee Dragonauts.
It's very scary.
Attack you for 8. Bring you to 14.
Yep.
Play an island and pass the turn.
Attack for 7.
I'm at 12.
Definitely not shocking him with that thing. All right, so I don't think this arc like Phoenix. So I'm assuming Ross just has a counterspell here. Just has the 3 mana up. I'm assuming this is just going to be a counterspell. So in that case, I don't think jamming my threat is going to be where I want to be with my life. So I think we may just play a little bit smaller game. Yeah. Let's just do that. I think our worm can outrace a Phoenix. So I'm just going to play this thing for a bunch to make it uncounterable and kill your Wee Dragonauts.
I actually like that play a lot. I mean, he's leaving up 3 mana. You have to assume that he probably has some sort of protection. Otherwise, he would have just dumped his hand. He discarded a creature off of his chart, of course. So good spot.
So I want to find like extra burn here to try to close the game out, and I'm actually going to respond in case I draw into Wizard's Lightning.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to die, but I'll opt in response. Yeah, bottom that mountain. Draw. So this dies. You're at 14 right now.
Yep. That's fair.
And I'm going to 12.
Yeah, you're at 12 right now.
Or I'm at 12, so I'm going to 5 next turn. This is going to be 11, 8.
Yeah, so Ross did that up to see if he found a Wizard's Lightning to use his mana there. At least that would be my assumption.
Okay, attack for 3.
So I'm at 11.
Yep. Another Dragonauts. Pass the turn.
That is not good on my side.
Had a lot of Dragonauts.
Not good. Attack for 7.
Go to 5. Todd told me he only had 1 Banefire, so we'll see if he's a man of his word.
And while the Banefire would be lethal right here from Todd's side, it's important to note that if he didn't play it, he might have just died. Like, the Wee Dragonauts can represent a lot of damage on the other side.
No, we just have to do this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. We're just going to place 7.
Oh, that's getting ionized.
Yeah.
Take 2, go to 9.
Yep.
It's about as fast as I'll counter a spell of my entire life.
Yeah, I think we have to, because Ross could, like, just cast, like, Ionize anyway on his turn to deal more damage with the Wii. So I think we just have to, like, force, like, we have to just see
Attack,
it from his
lightning
hand.
strike you. You got Shivan Fire for my Phoenix?
No.
So all I got is a land.
Yeah, I just have ramp spells.
Whew. Exactly 9.
So if I don't cast the Plocka Worm, I guess I'm still okay then. Does the Ionize just would it dealt the 2 to you?
Deals to controller.
Yeah, so it would not dealt the 2 to me.
Yeah, and if I counter this, I'm 1 short.
So then, you'd get, because you'd have
Be
to counter
5,
that.
it'd be 8. Yeah.
Okay, so if I just don't cast my spell.
Yeah, if you just don't cast a spell.
Yeah.
That's tough. I mean, it could have just been in the gate.
I forgot about how Ionize dealt damage, just because, like, these are new cards. I just didn't realize. I just, was thinking it was like a counter spell. I didn't think it dealt damage, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very common thing to happen when you're playing with new cards. We're just not used to.
I didn't know Ionize dealt damage, so.
That's a hard spot not to cast a spell. I guess you pretty much know I have a counter spell.
Yeah, like I know you have a counter spell and you're at 7 or you're at 5 and I have a 7/7 trampler. I don't have to cast a spell there.
I mean, you could also, if he does nothing, you also can just maybe cantrip to kill him. Like there's a lot of things that can go wrong from his side. Like cantrip plus burn spell is lethal.
The thing I'd be doing without casting a spell is I'd have like Arch of Orozco, where I could maybe find like some kind of cheap interaction or something.
Oh, interesting turn.
Yep.
All right, chat. Hit me with some questions. We're gonna scroll back up real quick and see if we can find some good ones. Yuka34 says, "New Undermine is sweet." He, of course, is talking about Ionize. Ross, how do you feel about that card specifically in your deck, but also overall?
So it was very good there in this matchup because Palakworm was such an important threat. So I was very happy to have it. I'm not super excited about it specifically in this deck because it costs 3 mana. And this is a deck where you want to be tapping out or tapping low. So you really have to be incentivized with non-creature spells that you want to counter in order to want that in your deck over negate. But in general, 3 mana counter spells, a little bit of value, have seen a lot of play. So if there is a blue-red based control deck, I think that card could definitely see play. I'm not sure if it's better than the 1 blue counter Surveil one, even in an Izzet deck. So that is problematic for it.
Sinister Sabotage.
Yeah, Sinister Sabotage.
Yeah, that card's very good.
So yeah, I think that card is very good and will be the default counterspell for control decks in this format. So that's where you have to compare it to. And if you're in a deck that's a little bit more counter burn, maybe you're playing some more cheap threats in your control deck, maybe you want the extra damage. It's a very contextual thing. Yeah. But it's a solid card if the context is met.
Stork21 asked, Todd, will control with Teferi be a thing in new Type 2? Esper looks nice.
So the biggest problem, Esper has the cards to be really good. The biggest problem is Esper doesn't have the mana base to be good. So that's like what it's really lacking, is it's lacking a solid mana base. Teferi, of course, by itself is an amazing card, but the thing is these cards from Guilds to Ravnica are all very good. Like, there's just so many really good cards in Guilds to Ravnica, and they really incentivize you into being these guilds. And Teferi, of course, is not in any of these guilds. I think it's going to be kind of hard to play Teferi, especially right away. Maybe after a little bit, whenever after the first couple of weeks when the format shakes out, you can start figuring out the better decks where you really want to, like, what answers do you need for like the better decks, and you can kind of build a Teferi deck from there. But Teferi is not where I'd want to be on week 1 at all.
I think if you're just straight blue-black, splashing exactly Teferi, like 3 Teferis in your deck, 8 white check lands, 4 Isolated Chapel, 4 Glacial Fortress, I think you can do it.
Yeah.
But that's as far as you can go at this point.
All right. Let's see. Donnie Vito asked, thoughts on Thoughtbound Phantasm?
Is that the 1 mana 2/2?
I believe so.
That whenever you surveil, it gets a counter. If it has 3 counters, it can start attacking.
Yes.
It starts with Defender.
I guess this is more for the Temur deck. Like your
Okay, yeah,
just more cheap threats.
It might like
that
when
could
you
be
surveil,
like we talked. It's surveil, right?
Yeah. I keep confusing it, thinking maybe it's when you cast an instant or sorcery.
No, so
but it's when you surveil.
Whenever we talked about after like the Temur match, whenever we talked about like the Temur deck, like the aggro deck with that flying 2 mana card, also like the bug or whatever.
Yeah.
That could be a card in that deck if you need more threats early in the game, but that's most likely not going to be a constructed card.
I think it's an interesting sideboard card, actually, for decks like that.
Yeah,
bring it in against aggressive decks. It can either just trade early as a 1 mana 1/1 or 1 mana 2/2, just trade it off, save your life total. But if they don't have a super aggressive start, or you're able to stay on pace with them, then as the game goes along, it becomes a really big threat.
All right, multiple people actually. This is for Ross's blue-red or Izzet deck. Why no Gutter Snipe? And did you consider Gutter Snipe?
I did consider Gutter Snipe. I heavily considered it for the sideboard for matchups where they don't have a lot of creature removal. But I really wanted to stay with all of my threats have flying, and that Gutter Snipe takes away from that. I already had Enigma Drake and Wee Dragonauts, which I think are better, but it's definitely an option. It's at a spot in the curve where it's competing with a lot of cards. It's competing with the 2 I just mentioned and Adeliz, and it just came out behind the rest of those.
All right, one more about the Izzet Blitz deck. I guess that's what a lot of people in Twitch chat are calling it. Do you think this is the best aggro deck that the format can produce, or do you think Todd Stevens' Boros deck from earlier? And if you want to chime in about your Boros deck, I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, I think the Boros deck is... The Boros and Selesnya decks were the 2 most impressive to me out of the 6 that we played.
Yeah, and I think the Temur ramp deck is probably the most impressive, and then after that, then the Boros.
None of the other ones cast a Banefire for 11.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, but I was actually really impressed with the Temur ramp deck. I thought I was going to get run over for with just like the flying creatures that get so big that I don't have like basically interaction for it. I have creatures on the ground. I thought I was going to get run over really fast, and
with your 4 main deck Gift of Paradise, 4 main deck Block-A-Worm deck.
Yeah, but you just have so many cheap spells, counter spells. It was actually pretty close. Yeah,
and I thought it would be close, and I was right. Todd was skeptical about this matchup. I told him, "Don't worry, it'll be good." I was right.
Yeah,
I've played decks like this before. I know exactly where they are, and I knew I wasn't killing you before turn 6 because my threats cost 3 and 4.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have something like Storm Chaser Mage or Thermal Alchemist, so I think the damage output's a little lower on average.
Yeah.
Or Swift Spear. So it's gonna take some work. Get You Lava Runner might actually even be a consideration, since basically 2 power for 1 mana, and it's a wizard for Wizard's Lightning.
Yeah, if you want to move yourself towards a very red heavy direction and play Gitu Lavamancer and Gutter Snipe and Adeliz, things like that, that's a way to do it. I wanted to be in a little bit more blue direction. I like Opt and Chart a Course and Discovery a lot as just the cards that keep the gas flowing. So, although Risk Factor was actually somewhat impressive.
Yeah, that card was actually
better
really
than
good.
I thought it would be.
Yeah, I was really annoyed at that card, like playing against it, just because I didn't like either option. I thought that Risk Factor was really impressive.
So this is actually a question for Todd from me. So Risk Factor and cards like it, this Punisher mechanic where you give your opponent the option, it's really hard from the caster's perspective to feel how strong that card is. From your perspective, was Risk Factor just like bananas, or was it just good, or what did you actually think about it overall?
I didn't think it was going to be very good, but I thought, when I was, from my perspective, I had to make the decisions. I absolutely hated it. I didn't want to be taking 4. And I didn't want to be giving Ross 3 because of how slow my deck is and everything. The 4 damage is just so backbreaking. In other matchups where you're going to be interacting more, if I had more creature removal, killing these creatures, taking the 4 would not be nearly big a deal, and I don't think it would be as good there. But in this kind of matchup where I'm just a ramp deck just trying to play big things, the 4 damage is just not what I want to take at all. That's just really scary. But of course, so it's 3 mana, draw 3, and that's really good. So it's great in this kind of matchup.
Yeah. And there's a canonical example when Punishment Mechanic cards are bad, and it's when you really want the card to be a burn spell and they give you the other mode. Is the other mode actually helping you to win? And there was a point in game 2 when I cast Risk Factor and Todd said you can draw 3. If he had taken 4, he would have died on the spot. And I drew 3 cards, and then I cast it the next turn and drew 3 more cards because of Jumpstart, and I won the race by a turn because of the cards that it gave me.
Correction, he took 4 the first time.
Yeah,
the second time.
Yeah, the second time I would have died.
Yeah, so I cast it the second time, he would have died. He let me draw those 3 cards, and those 3 cards were enough to get me over the finish line against Balaka. So that was an impressive moment to me.
All right, next question from Joey Rules. I'm going to throw this one at Todd Stevens. How big of an impact do you think Assassin's Trophy will be for Standard? We can assume it's huge for other formats, obviously, but for Standard specifically.
I think it's worse in Standard than the other formats because the downside of giving the opponent the land is going to be worse for Standard, because in Standard, people are playing more expensive spells and they have more use for the lands. They also have just more basic lands in general, so it's just going to be a downside more often. It's not a removal spell you'll want to play early in the game. In Standard, Ross was talking about this when he was playing the Golgari deck, of why he had it in the sideboard and not even in the main deck, because he was scared of getting run over, but that's not a card you want to be using like on turn 2 when they have a 2-drop that's really scary. You don't really want to be Assassin's Trophy because then they'll just ramp them into bigger and scarier things.
Right, and I've talked about this a little bit in some of my articles. Like Path to Exile, when it was in Standard, it was obviously a great card. You know, the aggro decks didn't really mind giving other like mid-range or aggro decks an extra land, and it's just a really cheap removal spell. But there is a downside to playing things like Assassin's Trophy, because in Standard, decks are almost always trying to go big or have mana sinks to help them when they flood out. That fact, how detrimental of giving your opponent a land do you think that downside of Assassin's Trophy is going to be?
I think it's going to be really detrimental, especially when people can play, when there are just such good 5 and 6 mana threats in the format. If Assassin's Trophy starts to get played more, that's when you're going to see more cards like Teferi and Vraska for Planeswalker-wise. Even though they get killed, they're still just cards you want to ramp into. Besides that, also at 6 mana, you have Carnage Tyrant in the format. And so from a creature perspective, if you're getting extra lands and you're able to cast Carnage Tyrant earlier, Assassin's Trophy can't kill Carnage Tyrant, and that'll just end the game, and that's not where you want to be.
This is a question from me. Speaking of Carnage Tyrant, last week in my Versus video with Brad Nelson, I was playing Primal Amulet deck, and he cast Carnage Tyrant in multiple games, and it just felt deflating. Star of Extinction as an answer in red, yes or no? And do you think you need to play it in a ramp deck, or do you think it would be fine with like Goblin Electromancer, Primal Amulet, or just playing like a control deck?
All right, so if we're playing a control deck with Star of Extinction, it's going to be kind of tough to get there. If you think the games are going to go long enough, So I guess I don't really mind it as post board if you think the game's going to go long enough where they're bringing in Carnage Tyrant to be able to have something that you can't counter. That's so that's assuming that you're also hitting your land drops. You have counter spells. You're kind of answering the other stuff you're getting there. I don't really hate it too much because you do need some kind of answer to Carnage Tyrant. You gotta have it.
I had the light bulb there, and I was like, what if we just put Star of Extinction with our Jaya Ballard? And I was like, wait, does Star of Extinction deal 20 to Planeswalkers? And it does. I just read it.
Yeah.
Now I'm sad again.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Stefan0620 asked, does Direfleet Daredevil have a spot in your Izzet Aggro deck? Or do you think maybe it's just a sideboard card? I don't think you had it in your list. Is it something you might consider for not necessarily the mirror, but any sort of grindy deck with removal and creatures as an option?
That is definitely a card I would consider, especially if my opponent is playing creatures that my removal spells don't match up well against. Or if they're playing an aggro deck with cheap removal, because the 2/1 first strike body is going to be good against aggro normally. The problem is there aren't a lot of decks in Standard that are rife with cheap spells, and I really want to be flashing back something that costs 1 or 2 mana with it. So there would have to be decks like that have 1 or 2 mana spells that are good against their own deck. I think flashing back Assassin's Trophy on big spells out of those decks would be good. So it'll be good against those decks. I've played it in Modern out of Humans against decks like Jund, target Fatal Push, and Abrupt Decay. So any deck that's structured similarly, it would be good against them. And I think it would also be good against cheap red aggressive decks just to target their own burn spells and be an early body.
This one's for Todd Stevens. KYS Thoroughbred asks, how do you feel about Night of Autumn in that Bant mid-range?
Oh, I love Night of Autumn. I think Night of Autumn is going to be amazing in Modern. I think it honestly fixes a hole that Green-White Company had, where Green-White Company is not nearly as good against burn as a lot of people think, just because there's 4 Courser Crucifix in the deck. People think it's good against burn, but it's really not, because it's a slow deck. and burn will just have more time to draw more burn spells. Anytime you don't have your coursers early, it's pretty hard to win. So I would want extra sideboard slots against burn to actually have a reasonable chance in that matchup, but I didn't really want to spend any sideboard slots just for burn, because usually the sideboard cards that are good against burn aren't good against other stuff. In Modern, you need your sideboard cards to do things against all sorts of different decks, and that's where Knight of Autumn will come into play. It'll be good against burn, and it'll also be good against all the artifact enchantment decks. It'll just replace Reclamation Sage and make a huge upgrade for the deck.
It's so good. It's just so versatile. It's so good.
Yeah.
Bruno MFM asks, so we've already touched on this, but I want to get a little more reiteration. Nexus of Fate in your ramp deck, why not? And if so, why?
So basically what I was kind of talking about was to get the full value from Nexus of Fate, taking an extra turn, you're going to want to be able to gain advantage from the permanents you have into play. If you only have 7 mana and you're only casting Nexus of Fate, if you're not doing anything else with your turn, if you don't have any permanents on the battlefield, if you're not doing anything else, all you're doing is just playing the spell, untapping your lands, and drawing another card. So you're really just having a card that just lets you play your land drop, untap your lands, and draw another card. So it's not going to really do a lot unless you have other permanents on the battlefield. So I wanted my 7 mana cards to impact the battlefield, stuff like Palaka Worm, where it'll gain life and be a threat that can block and everything. Nezahal can block and also draw me cards and things like that. So I just want things that affected the battlefield.
Sure. So this one is for Ross. Any thoughts on the new Ral Planeswalker, either in general or specifically in your deck? I know you had some in your sideboard.
I had a single copy in my sideboard. I think it's a powerful option out of my Izzet deck against control decks. I did not bring it in against Todd's deck, even though the games are going to go a little bit longer, because Todd isn't interacting with me in a traditional sense. He's mainly just slamming haymakers and taking over the game, and incremental card advantage usually isn't great in matchups like that. So I declined it to bring in the Ral here, but it is, again, a Planeswalker in that mode, and there's been a Twitter meme around for a while now. Just 5 mana, you get to draw a card. In this case, you get to do even better than that. Fill your graveyard, get a little selection. The -3 kills a permanent. So I do think Ral will see some play as long as it's good enough to play Izzet. The issue with most of these multicolored cards isn't going to be, are they powerful enough on their own? If you can cast them, they're good. The issue is whether or not the shells that they're going to go into are going to be powerful. And that's another problem with Assassin's Trophy. Is Golgari good? It's a huge commitment to play Golgari in Standard, where the mana isn't nearly as good. It's not nearly as big of a commitment to splash green in your Temur deck in Legacy or in Modern because of the fetch dual land mana base. So the context here matters so much more in Standard for these multicolored cards, and that's really why we played the decks that we played today. We pushed the guilds themselves as far as they could go. We saw a lot of the powerful things they can do, and then it's a question of which ones aren't as good just doing their own thing and have to adapt, and which ones are really powerful doing their own thing.
All right, this one's actually, this is a great question. This one comes from WattX18. I'm going to let Todd start to field it, but y'all feel free to go on about this. How do you feel about Tajik, Legion's Edge, and Humans in Modern?
Okay. So right now, with Humans in Modern, so Tajik, of course, is a 3 mana spell. For the 3 drops, you have Mana Strider and Reflector Mage. Those 2 cards are amazing. They're not going anywhere. Besides that, we've had a big mishmash of cards of like trying to fill out the rest of the 3-drop slot. Of course, Militia Bugler was really popular at first whenever it came out, and now a lot of people have just really cooled on it. We have Thalia, Heretic Athar, and Kestic Malcontents, which Malcontents always been my favorite, but those cards as well. So Tajik could fill that role. It could fill in for the Thalia or the Malcontents, Bugler, those kind of cards. It's not going to replace Mana Strider or Reflector Mage. So if we're filling in for that kind of role, Ross, what do we want from Tajik there?
I think Tajik is very interesting in that role, and I'll certainly be trying it out. Mm-hmm. I like having another haste threat, and a lot of the times when you play your Mantis Rider, it's when they don't really have blockers, so it having flying isn't as big of a deal. That's not all the time, of course, so we're not replacing Mantis Rider for multiple reasons, but the Mentor ability is quite nice. Pumping up a Meddling Mage, oftentimes Meddling Mage just sort of sits there and doesn't get to attack or block. As a 3/3, it gets to attack or block a lot more. Pumping up Kite Cell Freebooter a time or two, super relevant. And sometimes you're going to get a counter on the Tajik from a Thalia's Lieutenant and then play a Mantis Rider and then get a counter on the Mantis Rider too. So there are a lot of ways to get a lot of value to the Mentor in Humans that are really important, even pumping up Noble Hierarch and just going a little bit wider. So I like applying more pressure out of haste. I think the Mentor is super valuable. And then that third line of text, prevent all non-combat damage. In most
That is
matchups, that's going to function like it's a flag bearer. They have to target it first, where their lightning helix or their lightning bolt. But if you're playing against a deck like Scape Shift or anything where their card in hand is Anger of the Gods, and you play that card, they're just dead immediately. And if you violate into play in response to Anger of the Gods,
yeah.
Ooh, now I'm just getting excited.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Joey Rules, another question from him. Do you think there will be a mono red goblins list that can compete in week 1? Ross, I know you've worked a little bit on Legion War Boss, but that was mostly in like older formats, I believe.
Yeah, I talked a lot about in older formats. Jim Davis wrote about goblins in standard.
Yeah.
And I think that there's potential there. Legion War Boss, we saw in the Boros deck, was very good. It'll be no less good in mono red. They'll get to play that same 1-drop, and they'll get to play Chain Whirler, Chain Whirler is actually, it's going to see less play than it did this last format, but I think as a result, the people that get to play it, it'll be better for them. By the end of this last format, this last standard season, people weren't really playing 1 toughness creatures outside of like the Thopter from PNLR, Champion of Wits, and Glintsleeve Siphoner. Sometimes you saw them move Siphoners to the sideboard because of the threat of
I know
Chain
Jay
Whirler.
Dean was big on that with the 2/3 lifelink death touch vampire.
Gifted Aetherborn.
Yes.
So you're going to get a lot more value out of your Chain Whirlers if you get to play it, and that makes the Goblin deck better. There's still multiple burn spells. You get to play Strike and Shock. So I think
and
there's
Wizard's Lightning too, if you want to.
Yeah, if you have some Goblin Wizards. So it seems like there's enough there. I just don't think the deck is going to be dominant.
Yeah, maybe Flamekilled. I don't know if you want to go that. Yeah,
there are some options, and I think there's enough to get it into the conversation.
All right, next question is from Killer JV99. Yes, Todd Stevens, do you think Grixis will stay a mid-range deck or maybe shift towards a more controlling shell?
I think Grixis for standard will have to go more controlling because it doesn't have the better early threats. Like Glintsleeve Siphoner was, a really good card for that deck that kind of kept it mid-range, and same with Champion of Wits. The 2 and 3 mana creatures in Grixis aren't really amazing right now, and so
just say they're bad.
They're not amazing. so basically, I think that's the way to go, is to go more controlling. Have like your Searchers, Cantargles, Bloodfast for your 2-drops, and then lots of removal. Kind of one bad thing about the deck, though, that I was realized whenever I was putting it together is a lot of the removal that I wanted to play had rotated out also. Not only Fatal Push, but then Magma Spray is a really big thing that rotated, and same with a Braid as well. And so just even filling out that early removal was kind of tough. But there are still a lot of powerful Dimir cards from the new set, and we have Nicol Bolas, which is insanely good. So there'll still be a Grixis deck.
All right, this is from Atog Hoy Jr., but also just a couple different people have talked about this in the chat. Are there any monsters / stompy decks? I guess assuming we're talking about Steel Leaf Stompy with Steel Leaf Paladin.
Steel Leaf Champion.
Steel Leaf Champion. Do you think that that kind of deck needs to be mono green, or do you think you could play like a light splash? And what would you splash?
So I think for the most part, you want to stay mono green whenever you're playing Steel Leaf Champion. You do have the ability to do a light splash with that. I'm thinking probably black for like your splash if you want with Assassin's Trophy and Vraska Relic Seeker. Because then you'll have like the 8 dual lands between Overgrown Tomb and Woodland Cemetery with that. But I definitely think that's going to be one of the best decks week 1 is just going to be the mono green deck. There's just a lot of really good cards. Obviously, you have Llanowar Elves and Steel Leaf Champion, like we mentioned. But the 4-drops are really good with Vine Mare and Nullhide Ferox. I think Nullhide Ferox is an amazing card. I think it's really good against Nicol Bolas.
For sure.
Yeah. Or just
nice
even,
ability, doofus.
Yeah.
Here's a 6/6.
So... and then, of course, you have Carnage Tyrant. And so, like, if people are actually playing Assassin's Trophy, I think the green deck is kind of where I want to be, where you can take that extra mana and really use it into a big threat with, like, Carnage Tyrant. So that's going to be a good deck.
Armadillon asks, do either of you think that there could be a deck that uses Pirate Jace Cunning Castaway? Is that a card that you've considered for any deck? Or, do you think it's remotely playable now?
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that card, but maybe that Temur Aggro deck that we're talking about, if we get like those cheaper creatures where you can tick it up and loot, it doesn't take long to ultimate that card.
And you can get real low to the ground and play Siren Storm Tamer. You can play Slitherblade. You can play the 2-mana 1/2 flyer that surveils when you attack.
Yeah.
So you're constantly surveilling. So there's a lot of cheap evasion creatures to pair it with. It's a pretty underpowered deck. I'm not gonna lie.
The card is garbage.
But
just want to say
I'm not opposed to playing underpowered creatures, as I think many of you know. So I'm not opposed to doing something like that, and then having the 2/2 flyer and the 3-drop slot be super low to the curve, super low curve, and attack them that way.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to this deck at all.
Yeah.
If
Can we get favorable wins in this deck?
can we get that, or can we get can we just like have a light black
Okay,
splash?
Chad, it's brew time.
No,
What-
use the white.
what about the Djinn?
That turns Jace copies into angel tokens.
There we go.
Okay. Director
Jace
Dan is
Myers
going
Two
real
Mega
deep.
Yeah,
Yes.
No, why don't we just play Tempest Djinn, because that card's actually good,
Blue-white Jace combo.
and not so much these black cards. Why don't we just
All
play
right.
Tempest Djinn? That card's great.
Or we'll get like one or two more questions here. A couple of people have been saying specifically, let's give Todd Stevens an SCG tie so he can look
Okay.
dapper.
Okay,
I
I do.
like
I would
that
like an
comment.
SCG tie. That'd be nice. It's gotta
a
be.
lot
It's gotta be a skinny tie.
After y'all start talking about Nullhide Ferox, a lot of
Mhm.
people are specifically curious. Like, do you think it's only good in like a mono green deck, or do you think it could just be a natural good 4-mana spell in any creature heavy deck?
It will. It will be a good, just regular creature. Kind of like how we've seen with like Rekindling Phoenix or Jade Light Ranger or something. Kind of like in that role. It's just a really good creature, and that's gonna, like, if you're playing green, if you're playing Land War Elves, it's a good option.
Yeah, I think that last point that Todd said is really important. You don't need to be mono green, but I think you need to be green heavy enough that you're playing Llanowar Elves in your deck, because unlike Hexproof, the tax ability of Nullhide Ferox, where they can pay 2 to ignore it, means that getting it down as quickly as possible is super important, so that you get one more turn before they get to enough mana to actually answer it. So green enough for Llanowar Elves, but not mono green.
This one's actually a question for me. Link390 asks, have you guys played with the 6/6 flying trample, paid 2 surveillance 2? He's obviously talking about
Doom Whisper.
Yeah.
Todd, you had it in your deck. I played it last week. The one time I casted it was phenomenal. You had it in your deck. You didn't draw it, but what do y'all think about the card specifically?
Yeah, and Ross also had it 4 of in his first deck and didn't
I
draw
had
it either.
two in the Golgari deck.
Oh, you
that
only
I
had
played.
2?
Yeah.
Okay. I had 4.
And I boarded them out. Yeah, you had 4. So we both played it today. We both played it in losing efforts.
Yeah.
But we didn't cast the card. I think the card's really good.
Same.
I basically, like, that
really
whole
got
game too, and I was just sitting with a bunch of lands and nothing to do. I would have loved to have one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Would
the
love to have
fact
one.
that you can
Well,
continue to pay 2 life and surveil 2, I mean, you could use that to turbocharge certain things that rely on surveilling over and over. You can use it for graveyard-based
Yeah,
strategies.
you can use it to to flip your Argos Bloodfast when you want. If you don't want to like spend the mana to draw cards, you can just like, hey, I want to go flip my Argos Bloodfast and make sure I can gain life again.
It's also incredible with the 3/1 lifelinker. One gives you life to activate the Doom Whisperer, then the Doom Whisperer pays that life and gets it back. So I think those two in a black mid-range shell is something I want to
Yeah, it's
explore.
Blood Operative there.
Blood Operative. There we
Hey,
go.
Todd Coy Jr. asks again, what do you think of Pelt Collector, and do you think there's a possibility for a zoo deck?
So Pelt Collector.
It's basically
one?
experiment 1, but if it's a 4/4, it has trample.
And it triggers when they die, which is important, but it
Oh,
also
right.
doesn't check toughness. It only checks power.
Okay.
So a lot of small subtle differences to understand Pelt Collector, and it's also an elf, which is why I like it.
Okay.
Because I think there's the potential for elves in standard. I wrote about it a few weeks ago. I think it was missing another 1-drop. I think Pelt Collector could be that 1-drop.
Sure.
You can Amara as an elf if you want to go white. There are some black elves if you want to go black.
Mhm.
So I don't think there's a zoo deck in standard, because you really need a lot of good aggressive cards, and then you need the mana to make it work.
I think we also need Stomping Grounds.
Yeah, we need Stomping Grounds.
Yeah, Stomping Ground, Sacred Foundry. Or wait, we have Sacred Foundry, but yeah.
But Pelt Collector is a card that I think could be good. I think it'd be good in the mono green decks too.
All right, this is going to be the last question of the day. User
Mm-hmm.
Prime X, do you think Undergrowth and Surveil will come together to make a Soul Tide deck, or will those guilds stay separate in competitive standards specifically?
Todd's the Sultai guy, so take it away.
Yeah, I think that they do need to come together. We kind of saw there with the first match with Golgari, second match with Temur, both the decks look kind of underpowered, and they're both wanting to play a more controlling role, and with that, I think it's easier to play 3 colors, and I think they just kind of need to come together to make one deck.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So I guess that's our last question. So this was the Guild Wars on Versus Live, and I think what we learned is Temur Ramp best deck in standard.
Did we though?
I think that's what we learned.
It was the sweetest deck of
Yeah.
the day, for sure. Unfortunately, it was not a guild.
I'm not sure that's what we learned.
All right. So next week we are going to be back with 2 editions of Versus Live in 1 week.
Yeah.
That's right. We're going to have on Tuesday, same time, we will have Ross Merriam and Todd Anderson, who's been chiming in here with the questions.
He'll
We'll
be
be
on
here.
camera instead of back there. It'll
Yeah.
be
Yeah, it'll be crazy.
Yeah.
It'll be crazy. And then that'll be on Tuesday. And then at Thursday, you'll have myself and Brad Nelson will be right here.
Sorry, Brad Nelson.
And before we go, there have been a ton of people asking about specifically the deck list that y'all used today. Just for everyone to know, check Star City Games Twitter. After we finish the stream, we will be posting all 6 deck lists for y'all to peruse and get your hands on and pre-order all your cards.
There we go.
Hold on. You mentioned Brad Nelson. I've never heard that name before. Who is that?
I don't know.
Is he new?
I mean, I'm pretty sure he beats you every time you play.
Is he new?
He hasn't been here for a while.
He was here last week. I played against him last week.
You sure?
Yeah, I mean, he's traveling for the pro tours and stuff while us peasants are at home.
Yeah.
You know, just...
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I think he's doing
I'll have
something.
to introduce myself to him, I guess.
He's doing something this weekend. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something
I don't know.
traveling around the world or something like that. All right. So for Ross Merriam, I'm Todd Stevens. That's going to be it for us here on Versus Live by StarCityGames.com.